Hey guys, Switchblade Colt here, and coming to you with a review of the Realm Reborn Final Fantasy XIV official benchmark. Yes, I'm doing a review of a benchmark, and the reason I'm doing a review of a benchmark is pretty simple. Final Fantasy XIV was a joke. It was probably one of the most absolutely horrendous launches of a game ever. You thought, you know, Diablo 3's Era 37 was a bad, launch. Oh, no. Like, this game almost put Square Enix out of business. Like, they had investors writing nasty letters to the public just saying, we're bailing on this company, sell your stock off. You know, this company is beyond redemption. And so this, A Realm Reborn, is their answer to that. You know, the game engine just was awful. It was slow, it was ugly, it was bad. So they've rebuilt the entire game engine, and this is their official, like, hey, look, our engine, yay, you know, see how well it works on your computer. I'm running it at max settings, and I'm hoping it's recording okay without too much frame loss. My rig's not the best, but it's alright. So, anyways, so the first thing they've shown us here is chocobos. Lots and lots of chocobos. And I find that to be really funny, because in the original launch, one of the big pet peeves that a lot of people had with the game was, where are the chocobos? I ain't got no chocobos. There's a chocobo in the intro sequence. Why are there no chocobos in the actual world when I get into the game? Seriously, just when you're watching this, just look at all the chocobos. Like, they take so many opportunities to switch back to the chocobos. Here we've got some nice sequences of combat. If you've played Final Fantasy XI, a lot of this looks, you know, the same. One thing I have to say about the benchmark is it reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy XI. Like, it looks like Final Fantasy XI. The design is very Final Fantasy. Which that can either be a good thing or a bad thing. But one thing I really didn't like about Final Fantasy XI was the animations for people. Everything just seems so doll-like. Kind of lifeless. You know, and I think that is an old generation MMO problem, early 3D model technology problem, where models were in 3 dimensions, but they were really stiff and didn't like move right. Think like Final Fantasy VIII, when you had the characters like not in the cutscenes, but just the characters talking to each other like outside of cutscenes. Like, look at this. It just seems so stiff. You know, like, that's the best way to describe it. It's just, it doesn't seem like it's natural. Even their walk animations look fake. You know, I mean, it just doesn't look right, you know? It's falling really hard in that uncanny valley. But yeah, I mean, so graphically, though, it looks okay. I think the colors feel a little muted and muddy. I don't know how to best describe that, because it's very bright, but it doesn't look like the colors are very bright. Like, their choice of color is very conservative, I would say. And it could just be the shots, you know, in the areas they're choosing to show to us, but that was also a complaint I had in Final Fantasy XI, is as far as the art went, they were very, very, very conservative with color. You know, a lot of whites and grays and browns and you know, like greens. Like these greens they're using here, they're very dark. I mean, even this maybe it's the lighting effects they're choosing to use, but even this dragon here who's these, you know, bright colors, it just doesn't. It feels like the colors are like lost out. You know, unless there's a very bright light source light on it, it seems very like, you know, it's like a mustardy yellow and a sort of a ink washed kind of colors. You know, it reminds me a lot of like Warhammer figures or something that were painted yellow and then, you know, ran over with paintwash. So they're kind of grimy and dirty, which I guess is cool. It kind of separates it, you know, makes it more, you know, less cartoony, as a lot of people like to complain about World of Warcraft. But I just don't know. I liked it in Final Fantasy XI because it was kind of unique. But now that a lot of other games are trying to be more realistic by just being washed out with their color palettes, it just, I don't know. I'm really hoping that there's be more of a high fantasy kind of pop, you know? Like Lord of the Rings, even though it's, you know, I'd say Lord of the Rings is a little grimy, I guess, but I mean, it's still, there's so many fantastical elements that just sort of, it seems very alive. I mean, especially like in the early scenes in the Shire, I mean, they're just bright colors and a lot of mood setting, you know, when they're in the they use color to help accentuate the mood. And I don't know, maybe that's another thing. Maybe it's just their color choices. Like, you know, they're fighting this dragon in a dark, dingy dungeon, and it's like, we're gonna make that dragon yellow and turquoise. And you're like, what? Like, huh? I don't get it. Like, you know, you'd expect a lizard. Those are some really bad animations. But yeah, I mean, you'd expect, you know, like a lizard in a rainforest to look that color. You wouldn't expect a dragon in a dungeon, you know. Then that's when you want to use those kind of darker colors. Or, I mean, even if you don't want to use darker colors, you could do like a really, really bright red or a bright, you know, I'm kind of forgetting my color design stuff, but you know, you want a color that's going to invoke an emotion in the player, and I don't think yellow and turquoise is really going to invoke the proper mood for that environment. Like here, I actually really like how, you know, this field here looks pretty good with the sunset, and you know they're fighting, but I don't know, it doesn't seem to match up with what's happening in the air. Maybe that's just me overanalyzing everything. Needless to say, I think everything looks last generation. And I mean, that's saying something because we're at the end of the current generation. If you remember, Final Fantasy XI was on the PlayStation 2, and this is going to, or is on the Final Fantasy XI is on the PS3. But it kind of looks like a late-gen PS2 game. Even this brand new, you know, built from scratch, quote-unquote, engine looks dated. I mean, it runs fine, and it looks clean. And trust me, if you played Final Fantasy XIV, this is an improvement by a long shot. I mean, just a very vast improvement. But I mean, it still looks kind of last gen, or really, really early current gen. You know, it's got higher, you know, density textures, and it's got, you know, more polygons in the models, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel. It feels kind of like they took a step back, strangely enough, from Final Fantasy XIV. Because I remember the player models themselves, like especially in the character creation screen when you get a nice close-up look of them, they looked pretty good, you know, they looked pretty alright. But yeah, I think they may have, I think what they're trying to do, if I can speculate a little bit, is to try to recapture that audience from Final Fantasy XI that they lost. Because there are a lot of people that moved from Final Fantasy XI that I know of. I don't know the numbers, but I mean, I have a lot of friends that played 11. I played 11. For a good amount of time, and I had a lot of friends that moved off of 11 to start 14, and they were really disappointed and felt, you know, kind of betrayed and alienated, and stopped playing Final Fantasy 14 shortly after the release, and never went back to 11. So I think they're trying to maybe recapture that, but oh yeah, Catboy. Notice that is a male cat trainer. That is new. I guess they're doing away with the single-sex races, maybe, which I always found to be something very interesting with the story and the character creation steps. You know, it's like, hey, if you're gonna be a Mithra, which I forget the name of the ones in 14, they're like, I don't know, something stupid. But if you wanted to be the cat people, you had women. That was it. And what was cool in 14 is you could be the night elf basically, or the high elves of the cat people. The ones with dark skin that come out that worship the moon goddess and come out at night, and the ones that worship the sun and come out of the day. And it was this cool little dynamic going there, which I liked it. And I'm scared that they're gonna do away with all that, because that was good. Like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Keep what worked in 14, which there wasn't much. Granted, there was a couple things I liked, which were basically just enhancements from 11. But don't throw that out with that horrible train wreck that was 14. Honestly, if 14 would have been able to have native hardware, accelerated mouse support, drag and drop management of equipment and items, and not laggy, terrible zones, I would have been okay. It would have been playable, and it would have been kind of fun, because they had some interesting mechanics as far as combat and leveling went. Oh, and the bazaars. Oh, the bazaars. 14 had this horrible system where they didn't have an auction house. They had player-run bazaars, which in concept is awesome, especially if you played a game like Ultima Online, which I was big in Ultima Online when it was new. It was a big deal. Time to play Guess Switchblade's Age! So, I was big in Ultima Online. And, that was... Oh god, even thinking back to Ultima Online had drag and drop, inventory management. How could a game like Final Fantasy XI not have that? Or, sorry, 11 didn't have that, but 11, had the excuse of, we were built for a input system that did not have a mouse and never would, because mouse support on the PS2 was a pipe dream. But, I mean, I don't own a PS3, but I'm pretty sure, mouse and keyboard support wouldn't have been an issue. Especially when it was supposed to be, their big time release. It was going to be on PC. They were releasing on PC first, and then they were going to release on PS3, I think, 4 months later. But anyway, thinking back to a game like Ultima Online, where it had vendors that you could set up at your house out in the wilderness. You found a plot of land that didn't have trees on it or anything. You could put down a house, and you could buy an NPC slave to stand on your porch and sell shit. And it was cool. It was awesome. It was a great idea. It made for a very interesting interaction with people. You'd have, oh yeah, I know that this guy who sells scrolls. He's really good. His scrolls, he's a master scribe, so all of his scrolls are flawless, so they don't have a chance to fizzle when you cast them with low magic, whatever, a magic score. And so you bookmark where he was in the physical place, because you could write teleportation landmarks to longitude, latitude locations. And so, you'd trade rune books. I was just like, hey, here's a copy of my rune book that has all these really good vendors that I use, Oh, there's a couple potion makers, some blacksmiths, And there would be this reputation economy of, someone who was a good blacksmith who had good prices and, always kept his vendors stocked would, people would talk about it. And be like, oh, yeah, you can, go down the street and, go in the woods, a mile, and then, turn left at the river, and, he's right there, right next to the portals, That also had the other dynamic of people out hunting people out in the woods, PKs, which I might have, been part of a small PK guild that had a tower outside of a major metropolitan area and happened to, murder anyone who happened to wander by because it was next to one of the big, you know, trade routes. You know, didn't get sieged by, you know, 40, 50 people with dragons. You know, that didn't happen. No, of course not. By the way, I miss Ultima Online. Ultima Online was awesome. I kind of want a game like Ultima Online to come out, frankly. Something that's a lot less, let's see, hotbar based, like WoW. That's a lot more action RPG-ish, kind of like Ultima was, but not like Guild Wars is, because Guild Wars 2 is fun, but I just can't stay invested. But anyway, so my hope and dream for this game is that it keeps the things that I liked, gets rid of some of the things that I didn't like, and I guess that concludes things for A Realm Reborn, the official benchmark review, I guess, if you can call it a review. Anyways, catch you next time.